stay in the hills, and all his kinfolk are saying you need to go to Beverly Hills. So he ponders over that. But there's a conversation, actually found a transcript from it. There's a conversation where he and his sister Pearl, cousin Pearl, he's talking with Pearl and pondering, should I move? And he says, what do you think, Pearl? Do you think I ought to move? This is Pearl's response to Jed. Jed, how can you even ask? Look around you. You're 8 miles from your nearest neighbor. You're overrun with skunks, possums, coyotes, and bobcats. You use kerosene lamps for light. You cook on a wood stove summer and winter. You're drinking homemade moonshine, washing with homemade lye soap, and your bathroom is 50 feet from your house, and you asked if you should move? Jed's response, well, I reckon you're right. A man would be a dang fool to leave all this. It's a matter of perspective, isn't it? So we're talking about gratitude. We're talking about perspective. So Tom and I want to spend a couple of weeks talking about perspective. But here's the catch. Tom and I haven't prepared enough material to occupy 2 weeks because we need your input. So we want the next 2 weeks to be participatory classes where you talk as we do. So hopefully we can pose some questions to you that will cause you to ponder, and then you can share those pondering thoughts with the class. And we're going to have microphones right here. Dora's got one, Joe's got one, and he'll come to you. And there's going to be places where we're really going to rely on you unless you want to go to lunch really early. This attitude of gratitude is it's not really a seasonal thing. It's something that should be year-round for us, and we want to experience gratitude in our life, not just during the next few weeks, but we want it to be something that is year-round. We go into this topic with a keen awareness of where we are in our world right now. It's not just in our nation, but it's in our world. We live in such a tumultuous time. Some argue that this is the most tumultuous time during all of human history. I would argue that. I think that the world has always had tension and turmoil. It's just that we're living in this one, so it affects us directly. And we come to this class aware that we feel that tension. And we feel that stress. And it's hard to kind of isolate ourselves away from where we are in the world. It's hard to isolate ourselves away from the national issues that face us. It's hard for us to isolate ourselves away from the issues that we face even within Madison County. So we're going to go into the next couple of weeks with a full awareness that we have plenty of reasons to be depressed and worried and anxious, okay? So we're saying, though, is that the perspective that we as Christian people need to have. Because we believe that experiencing gratitude partly is our choice. That we have control over that. This world does not get to live rent-free in our heads. That we, because we're believers in Jesus Christ, we have something that changes us from the inside, and it shows outward. So Tom. So if you don't know this, Tom is a clinician, and he works with people every day in counseling situations. So Tom is a professional counselor. So as he has related to me earlier, his calendar is completely booked over the next couple of months. So if you want to get in to see him, you can. And it's booked because of the anxiety that often accompanies the holidays. So Tom, what are you experiencing right now as a counselor?
Yeah, we're seeing any number of things. In terms of changes, there are people who, as we approach Thanksgiving and Christmas, there's a heightened awareness of people who are missing in their lives who were with them this time last year. And so they're having to look at those changes and adapt and try to better, deal with the things that emotionally that they are experiencing because of that. There is sometimes also a heightened awareness of problems in marital relationships. So I'm seeing even more people, I think, coming in with marital distress. But I think one of the biggest things that I see is that right now, and it always occurs, it seems to always occur this time of the year, we're faced with having to interact with family, some of whom we don't have that much interaction with during the rest of the year. But it's Thanksgiving and everybody's coming together. For example, there are people in my life, in my family, the one subject you do not want to bring up during the holidays are politics. Because we're miles apart in a lot of that. And that just creates a lot of agitation. So we just don't do that. But there also at Christmas time, there are other considerations. And maybe some of you feel this, maybe some of you don't. How many of you remember the song by Merle Haggard? You brought up Beverly Hillbillies. I can bring up Merle Haggard. Merle Haggard, had this song that if we make it through December. Any of you remember that? Yeah, you did. I think a number of us related to a lot of the things he was saying, especially if money's a little tight and things are, it's just really kind of a difficult time sometimes. So a lot of those things are there. So the first thing that I guess Joe could ask me, that he forgot to ask me, I'm going to go ahead and say,
actually,
you forgot to ask me this.
That's not until the next little section.
Oh, that's the next section.
So, Tom, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Probably one of the things that we all experience as we sit around the table is what we'll just call the empty chair. It's the throwbacks to maybe even last year or a few years ago when so-and-so sat here and so-and-so sat here. And we all remember those that no longer will enjoy the holidays with us because they have passed. Sometimes life circumstances create that empty chair. So the question I have for you is, how can we best honor those that are no longer gathered around our tables? Aren't you glad I asked that?
There's a dilemma sometimes associated with that. Do we address that? Or do we just try to push it in the back and say, that's history. We're not going to deal with that. That sometimes is the way we approach it. But rather than me answering how we should deal with it, I'd really rather hear from you guys. How do you deal at this time of the year with losses in your life? What are your suggestions? What do you think about that?
A happy time.
Okay.
We usually the happy times that you get to spend with those people, and not dwelling on them being gone.
Do you take time out to mention those, to talk about it around the table sometimes?
Absolutely, we do.
Okay, so you don't avoid the topic at all then?
Absolutely not.
Okay, very good.
I've seen people who would sometimes have pictures displayed of that individual and talk about the really positive times with that person. And children, grandchildren share that with each other. So it's a really positive approach to it.
All right, somebody had a comment over here. Carl.
I just said we usually don't talk about it at all.
You really don't? Okay, so just kind of avoid that and go on. So you're focused more on
Well, not just
today.
me, I think a lot of people.
Yeah, okay. All right, good. All right, over here. Oh, hey.
Yeah. So I would say my favorite part is when people repeat stories, period, like any time of the year. But we talk about my dad, we talk about my grandmother, my granny. So I mean, yes, it creates tears sometimes too, but it honestly creates a lot of laughter.
Okay, good. So both of those are valid emotions, aren't they?
Yeah.
Tears are good emotions, good processing, so is the laughter. Jean?
Well, when he said that, a couple of different things kind of floated into my mind, and one of them was, I expect people sitting around the table and gathered for the holiday have a different opinion about whether or not we should mention people that we miss. And so that, I don't know if that's a little tricky, I don't know how you do that. And secondly, I thought, well, it probably depends a lot on why the person is missing. Did the person pass away? Or is the person in jail or rehab or whatever? Second, is the person, did the person die a natural long life death? Or was there a horrible accident that we're still suffering from? I mean, those things came to my mind about how we might address that. There's one more thing, but it's so important that I forgot it.
And the curious thing, all those things, all those different reasons that chair might be empty could be at the same table.
And sometimes, when I mention loss, I don't necessarily just mean loss due to death, but think about all the other losses that can occur in life. Loss of income, loss of, having to be forced, quote unquote, forced to retire. A lot of people have experienced what they feel something has been forced on them, and at least here in Huntsville, that's what I hear in counseling a lot. Sometimes it's a loss due to divorce. I mean, people go through this and it's not isolated. The rest of the family are experiencing that, especially if, let's say, one of your children has been married to somebody for a number of years, maybe even grandchildren, and now there's a divorce. And that's not necessarily a time when it's a very uncomfortable time. So it's changes and challenges that we're looking at, and how do you deal with it? Dave?
I've been in several circumstances where we've just opened up the table. At this time, we like to remember people who are no longer present here with us, and just leave it open. And I've been amazed at how cathartic it is if someone across the table from me says, I'd like to remember Mrs. Thomas being my mother, and say something nice about my mom. It was cathartic hearing someone else give voice to my loss or another person's loss and saying something pleasant. And it's a very cathartic thing. It's very healing to know that other people can, share that missing memory, that pain of loss.
All right, very good. Anybody else? All right, these good comments show that, and probably each of us has maybe a different way of dealing with it, or perhaps you just choose not to deal with it. That's your choice. So Tom, as we get into the holiday season, a lot of different emotions probably are aroused in each of us, right? Some are more joyful during this time, some are more thankful, some are more sad. So what kind of emotions do you experience as you go through the holiday season? What do you find that really, what do you do in response to those emotions? Some thoughts? Yeah?
Several emotions. Gratitude, just the warm fuzzies from everybody being around, food, but also the ones who are gone. You feel the sadness too, so I feel sometimes it just sort of wells up in me unexpectedly. And others that I wished were there, it was a better relationship that are not, that may never happen. Closure on things like that. Just a multitude of emotions.
And for Beth's family, this is a little bit different too, because after Beth and I, in fact, while we were dating, but after we got married, every Thanksgiving was a huge family thing for her family. And this included uncles, aunts, cousins, everybody. It was huge. But you had the main table. And these were always held in the big homes with her family. So everybody could sit around, all the patriarchs and matriarchs could sit around the big table, and cousins and spouses and their children were all at a little table set up in other rooms. You know how it is. So you had the adult table. But one of the things that we experienced is, as the patriarchs and matriarchs exited, all of them due to death, as that changed and it created empty chairs there, they were filled with the oldest of the cousins. And I can remember when we graduated to the big table. And that was kind of exciting in one way, but it was sobering in another, because the only way that we were able to sit at that table was to experience the death of someone that was really close to you. So the honor came with memories as well. Now, unfortunately, as families became more and more spread out, less cousins and their children were able to attend the celebration, unwilling to attend the celebration, or life kind of collapsed that table, and there's no longer that gathering. So there's still a celebration within the family, but not together anymore. It's scattered out across. Very different time. All right, somebody, yeah,
Yes, so I was going to actually talk about that, like when we finally made it to the dining room. It was like, you know, like it was some big major thing. But then on the downside, you're like, oh no. Like, we're in the dining room now. So like my brothers and our spouses we're all in the dining room, and it does feel weird.
Yeah.
But one thing about being a military family is, like, I think we're having Christmas in January because that's when everybody can be there. So it's not like it's a special day, but it's special when everyone can be there.
Right.
You know, and so, yeah.
What was kind of haunting as we finally made it to the big table, didn't think about it until we were sitting at the table. You look over the doorway, and there were our children standing at the door, looking at our chairs, going, "Someday I'll be there."
When you die, I'll be there.
Yeah. That's one reason we abandoned this thing. It's kind of like, this is too morbid and stuff. Don't wait for us to die. All right, somebody get it.
I was going to say that something you asked a while ago, I just remember something you told me, and that is, it's okay to be sad. And it's okay because you lose someone initially, you try to be big for everybody. You told me, you said it's okay to wear your emotions, it's okay to roll in it, you just can't stay. And so I remember that being very powerful, and truly that's true, because now years pass and we can gather around the table with Joe and Beth and all of our big family, and we laugh and we have a good time, and we talk about our parents. We talk about our mom and dad that have gone on. And we look in that room and those kids are at the other table, and Allie asked us one day, she said, "What does it take to get at the big table?" And I didn't tell her what it took, I just said, "Why would you want to be there?" I said, "All they're talking about is Medicare and who's getting a new knee." You don't want to be at the big table. Enjoy staying in the kitchen. So.
Yeah, very good. And Jan's right. You know, sometimes we want to stuff our emotions, but they are good emotions to express. And I think any of us, if after we pass on, if our family does not spend a few moments mourning our passing, then maybe we haven't lived our life well enough. So it ought to be a sad moment and acknowledge that sadness, because that sadness is really what honors those who have passed. And one thing that I've learned from losing so many so close, all the negative things, the frustrations you may feel right now, they kind of drop off after a while. Now we can laugh about the things that used to aggravate us the most. And there's not a family gathering on my side of the family that we don't have that either my brother or I one will stand up and will say, "Well, Marge, if it wasn't for the two of us, none of this be taking place." That's what my dad used to always say. Took credit for everything. He used to aggravate us like, hey, we're people.
Credit
It's
for
not
blame.
just- Yeah, it's not just about you. But now we say that because it honors the legacy of my mom and dad that they did. They fathered and mothered us. And now we have had our own families, and yeah, we do owe a lot of respect and honor to them. And I hope it always makes people say that.
I don't think that I understood the value of going back through memories and talking about certain things that happened along the way. I'm talking about in front of our children. And this was highlighted when my son came to me and said, you know, I really, really enjoy this time when you and your brother, his uncle, get together and you guys start talking about things that happened over the years and situation and family and all of this. And he says, I just learned so much more. I feel like I'm there kind of living that with you guys. And it just brings, it makes my relationship with my granddad and my grandmother so much more rich, or richer, whatever. But it just helps me a whole lot. So that's been one of those things that I guess I had not really considered that much, how valuable that was to him. But let me say one more thing about the holidays. And we'll talk, I mean, we could look at the anxiety that sometimes we feel. And we can look at sometimes, due to loss or due to changes or challenges, some depression actually that we might. And I'm going to give you a handout in a few minutes that I want you to kind of take with you. I hope you made enough copies, but take with you maybe as a couple or an individual. Take with you and kind of look at that, because I'm often asked, well, okay, you know, what causes depression, what causes anxiety, and so on. Well, I get into that a little bit, and especially some of the neuroanatomy associated with that. Don't worry, I'm not going to give you a big drawn-out lesson about that. But what I want you to see in this is what changes as far as depression or anxiety when you demonstrate or express gratitude. It is amazing what happens in the brain when you do that. And therefore, in fact, some people have said, there was one trial that they looked at and said, you know, they looked at people expressing gratitude. And what they recommended was people express gratitude to someone 5 times a day. If it's the server at the restaurant, if it's wherever, but and it has to be genuine, obviously, coming from you, because fake won't work. And I'm not talking about for them, I'm talking about for you, it won't. But it's where you intentionally express gratitude 5 times a day within a short period of time is equivalent to a mild antidepressant medication. And so it can really help a lot when you look at that. But one of the other things that I want to mention this. There are a lot of people, it's not so much anxiety, it's not so much depression that they experience this time of year. It's almost like a deep, almost existential feeling of loneliness that they carry around with them. And yeah, that can be kind of a downer in terms of what it looks like. But here again, when we experience these kinds of things, what Joe and I are trying to do is to look at, okay, how do we remedy that? And not just during November and December, but setting a pattern maybe in November and December that will carry on through the year. Changing some behaviors, changing some things that you're doing that will truly make a difference in the way you feel. Does that make sense?
Gently.
Well, this comment has nothing to do with what Tom I was thinking earlier, I'm sorry.
That's okay, it doesn't have to.
Well, I do know about that loneliness because after hosting zillions, well, not zillions, but it seemed like zillions, of holiday meals with lots of people at my own home, now we are empty nesters and our sons are both very far away, and we have had holidays where it's just us, and that is lonely, that is really lonely. But what I was going to tell you was a much happier thing. Claire's husband's family does a brilliant thing. I think it's brilliant. It's a large family, and they are dispersed. A lot of them are local, semi-local, but they are dispersed, and the dispersed ones do show up. They rent a community center, and everyone brings dishes. There's, how many people there, John? Over 100 for sure. 120, 130, 150 people show up, and everybody brings a dish. Somebody is Santa. They decorate the stage with Santa's, and all the children go up and see Santa and get a little present. They actually hold a dirty Christmas present thing with that many people, and it actually works, which is insane, but it does work, and it's fun. But I just thought it was so great because, and it's not on Christmas or Thanksgiving. It's called Thanksmas, and it's in a couple of weeks. And they include people like us who are not blood related to anybody, but we're Claire's mom, parents. But it just, it's a wonderful thing, and you don't have these problems of sitting around the table and who's absent. And, even the black sheep show up and, they feel comfortable because they're not under scrutiny. There's just a lot of people there. And it's just a real joyous thing, and it avoids a lot of these problems.
All right, we're just about out of time. And so, but before we kind of transition into the end of this class, where we're going to have prayer for all of the prayer needs and thankfulness that we have, I do want to mention that next week, Tom and I are going to look at very pragmatic ways that we can become more gracious people, more thankful people. So Tom's going to have his top 5, I'm going to have my top 5, but we're going to go through those kind of rapidly, because we want to devote next week's class to thankfulness and the things in our life that we're truly thankful for. One of the slogans that I've run across frequently over the past couple of weeks as I've been looking at being a person of gratitude more is, what if we woke up tomorrow with only the things that we thanked God for today? And I thought, wow, there's so much power in that. And that keeps resonating in my head over how ungrateful we can be, I can be. And does that limit God's giftedness to us? So we've got to intentionally be more thankful people. Now, one of the verses that we want to kind of be key, and one that I want you to think about over this next week, comes from Philippians 4. You notice in this, I've highlighted the word rejoice twice in this because I think that's an important word. Rejoice in the Lord always. I'll say it again. He says, rejoice, let your gentleness be known to all, because the Lord is near. He says this, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Now, I'm going to say this twice because I want to make sure that you hear this. This is not a command. Okay? Say it again. This is not a command. It's not like you've got to be grateful. If you don't be grateful, you have to go to hell. No, that's not what this is. This is a response. When we understand God's grace in our life, what is going to be the natural response to it? Rejoicing. That's what Paul is saying, is that we are people who rejoice because of what God has done in our life. It's a response. But that response, it only comes through prayer and supplication and request being made known to God and the peace of God. All these things, it's such an important concept to realize just how blessed we really are. And so next week, we're going to focus in on the things that we're thankful for. So we should be thinking about that through this next week. So we want you to come to class with write down your list if you want to, because you're gonna have a chance, if you want, to be able to express the things for which you're thankful.
One of the things that I want to, just one quick comment to highlight about these verses. There's such a thing as a secure heart. And what will give your heart security is a little phrase right there, right after he says that. And I tell you, most of the time when I'm working with people who are very depressed, very anxious, or very lonely, that's exactly what they feel. God is far, far away. But in the middle of this passage, it says, Lord is near. And it's really important, I think, to recognize that, to try to keep that before us all the time, and hopefully that will help along the way.
Great, thanks. All right, Aaron.
Come on.
Welcome to Common Grounds again, everyone. Sorry about the chair situation. We're going to try and get the chairs a little more organized next week. But thanks for being here. I noticed there was a large crowd today, so while I was holding the mic, that is the exact number I came up with. That is amazing. 109 people. I was counting back there. That includes Kate, by the way, our youngest member. But 109 people. So that is fantastic. Thank you all for being here. Karen?
Thanks, Joe. David Bell counted 109 also, so we're good. We are good. And Katie Ann, we're glad she was here today. She was singing.